Welcome to Run with Purpose. This is episode number 108. And for those of you that are new to the show, my name is Flores, and I'm so very glad that you found this podcast. Would love if you would subscribe. As always, you can reach out to me on all the socials everywhere at flores.run. Hope you are having a great week so far. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope everything was fantastic for you. Let's take these headphones off because I don't need them if I'm just not listening to myself. Things have been good over here. Trying to cut out a cold right now. Actually, I've got the sniffles. Hopefully they don't come through too much on the show today, but I apologize if they do. Got my water if I need to, get a little sip during it. But had a great run this weekend. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things before Boston's coming up here mid-April. So just month and a half away. What's today, 27th? Just a month and a half away until the race. So very excited for that. Still got some fundraising to do. So, hey, if you would like to donate, you can visit the link in my bio on my Instagram page at flores.run and leave a donation there if you'd like. That'd be kind. You don't have to though, but I appreciate it if you did. But yeah, had a good run this weekend. I've actually only got 10 streets left on City Strides, which if you're not familiar with City Strides, I think I've talked about this before, but City Strides is really, it's a really cool app that this guy put together that basically uses your GPS data. So it links to Strava, to Garmin, to Runkeeper, I think to a couple other things as well. Do people still use Runkeeper? I know Chad and I talked about that a couple weeks ago, but I don't know. But yeah, it'll map out everything and you kind of track the roads that you've run. So what it really does is it lets you kind of have a little more fun on your runs, if you will, and give you a reason to kind of visit new places, maybe in your city or even in another town, to be like, hey, I haven't run that road before, or I haven't been in that general area. So let's go check that out. And it's really cool because I've got less than 10 roads left in Savage. Which is just crazy. I think there's 395 roads, if I remember correctly. Some of those were private that I had to take off the list, but yeah, it's been pretty cool. Just like checking out different parts of the city. I'm going to try to do a couple of the other suburbs here in the Twin City area, greater Twin Cities, just to keep knocking off different roads. My buddy Goat, he's like in the top 1 percentile of runs. He's done almost all of Columbus now, I think. He's done a couple other towns in Ohio as well. So yeah, just crazy, but it's really cool just to kind of map it out. And the data nerd is me, just like seeing that visualization, seeing everything going on. It's actually pretty neat. But the Arizona race report's up. I talked about that a little last week, that I would be finishing that up, and I did. It's been, so you can check that on the website, www.flores.run. And then, yeah, I've been seeing like a lot of things just like pop up in the every day to day, that have kind of, given me ideas, inspired me, if you will, to think of like some new podcast ideas. So some episode topics or some things that I hadn't thought about, or maybe I heard something that was just like a little bit different. I was like, actually, that sounds pretty interesting. Why don't I like break that down and kind of think about how I would want to talk about it and kind of give my 2 cents on it? Cause that's what I do on the show, obviously. And then, so hopefully the next few weeks you hear some episodes that kind of hit home or make you think about things maybe a little differently. I'm hoping this episode does that for you as well. And I'm also looking for some new guests. So if you know someone that has a cool story to share, or someone that I could vibe with and just have a good conversation, send them my way. Tell them to shoot me a DM. They can email me as well, jonathan@flores.run. There's so many different ways you can get in touch with me. But yeah, just have them reach out, and I'd love to meet some new people. I'm all about meeting new people. So the topic today, I feel like I need to get my headphones back on. I feel like I talk better when my headphones are on. It's because I can like hear myself and it just feels better. For those that are listening to the podcast, not watching the video, you have no idea what I'm doing, but the headphones are back on. With the video, I guess I should bring this up if you haven't noticed already. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can actually click the little button at the bottom and actually pop up and the video will be there. Or you can watch the video on YouTube as well. Everywhere else, it's just going to be audio. But if you want to see my stupid face for some reason, check it out there. But today's episode really going to talk about purpose, as you can see from the title. This is something that I really talk about on a weekly basis. Obviously, it's the whole premise of the show. But it's been a while since I've actually like broken it down and really talked about what purpose means to me and how you can kind of think about ways into to finding purpose or understanding purpose, if you will. I don't want to kind of word things in too weird of a way, but since it's been a little while, I was taking some time over the last few weeks to really think about this specific episode. This idea kept coming up in different parts of life, whether it was at church or I read an article or I watched a video or something. There's a lot of different aspects that started to hit home for me and really kind of wrapped all around this idea of purpose. So because of that, I was like, well, let's talk about purpose on the podcast. So those things that popped in my head, I'll put the links in the show notes for all the resources. So I'll bring them up, talk about them, but I'll have them in the show notes so you can go listen, read, watch, that sort of thing. But if we kind of get into it, this idea, we all desire to have purpose in our lives, right? This why within our day to day that continues to push us every step of the way, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, the thing that really kind of drives us. We all want to make a difference or be the change or do, the fill in the blank, whatever the thing is. We all strive towards that. And a lot of times I think it's associated as our purpose. We see that as like our purpose or our being. And I think there can be some danger in this thought. Not that purpose itself is bad, because that's obviously what this show is about. And most of my life goals are linked around purpose and that sort of thought. But it's how we go about chasing purpose. We've talked about things previously about chasing things like happiness or these like fleeting feelings, right? We're chasing after these things and they just keep kind of going away as we grasp for them. We'll never get to that moment or never have enough because our target keeps on moving. You may have heard of mo money, mo problems, right? But it's really true is when we chase these things, it might solve our current problem, situation, struggle, what have you. But in that process, it actually just comes with new ones. We hear those things about like rich people problems or this kind of joke of when you don't have a lot, if we want to talk monetarily, you have different kind of problems to meet needs. But then you're like, hey, if I just had money, if I had just this amount in the bank account, if I had just this car, if I had just this house, if I had just this spouse, whatever the case might be, then everything would just be better. And the problem is when we get to those, if we set those things as our goals or our targets, when we get to them, we find out that it's not actually enough. That we now have a new problem or a new target that we're trying to achieve. Again, in some cases that can be okay because we're continuing to grow. But we think about this idea of chasing after feelings. We're never going to get to that moment and be satisfied, because when we get to that moment, there's another moment. There's always someone that's doing something better or you are maybe longing to be after and that sort of thing. And I think chasing purpose has a similar effect as the chasing happiness or chasing any sort of feeling. Chasing purpose really can be a fleeting mission. And I guess in theory, anything that we're chasing after can have that same thought. What I wanted to do to kind of break down, and this has just been a thing that I've been working on personally, to really understand words and to understand words, to speak more better. Or speak more gooder. I think that's the right way of saying it. All the English majors are cringing as they listen to me talk right now. But taking a look at the definition of chase or chasing, looked up a few different resources, and dictionary.com says it's in order to catch or catch up with. And then Webster defines it as to follow regularly or persistently with the intention of attracting or alluring. And this idea to either catch up with or attracting, alluring, I think these are the parts that I'm talking about when I talk about this negative aspect of chasing purpose. This idea of chasing almost has this act of it being a game that we're trying to win. That once we catch whatever it is that we're chasing, we'll be fulfilled, or maybe even we can put it as we'll win. And like I said earlier, that seems like a very fleeting mission. We're grasping at things that aren't going to be there when we go to reach out for them, right? This is literally the definition of a midlife crisis. We're chasing after the things that we felt we were called to do because we can see the finish, if you want to call it that. We can see the finish, and we see it on the horizon, and we don't think that we're on the right path. We feel like we may have missed out on something along that journey, and now we're using these moments, we collectively, when talking about midlife crisis, I'm obviously not in a midlife crisis. When we talk about this journey of life, we realize that maybe we didn't do the thing we wanted to do. So when folks are having these midlife crises, it's buying the brand new car, changing the career, getting the younger spouse, feeling this way because you want to hold on to those moments that seem to be fleeting. Again, we're holding on or trying to grasp on these things to quote unquote win at this situation. I listened to a TED Talk recently from Chloe Hakeem Moore, and it was talking about her quarter life crisis, which is an interesting topic in general. And I want to do a little more digging and hear more people talk about this. But I can understand it, right? Being 25 years old and, just out of school, not understanding maybe the thing that you thought you wanted to do. Maybe that's not where you're heading, or maybe you realize, actually, I didn't want to do this at all. And I just spent all this time in school or doing whatever case be. It's an interesting concept to me, this quarter life crisis. But her talk was more about this idea of going from chasing purpose to finding wellness, which is a little different than what I'm bringing up here. But I think the idea is still the same. There's a lot of great points. Check it out. I'll have it in the show notes, like I said. But she had this idea of this point talking about this idea of being busy or stressed as the price of following your purpose, or the price of chasing your purpose. That in order to be living with purpose and doing the things that you felt that was your purpose, you also had to have these other aspects of life. You had to be overwhelmed and busy and stressed and have anxiety and all of these things. And for someone like me, that hits home pretty closely. Someone that juggles a lot of things, wears multiple hats. These kinds of thought processes really used to take a hold of me. I feel like I had to do everything on every process if I wanted it to be done correctly, or to the standard that I thought that I could do, which, news alert, there's so many people that do things so much better than me. And I've learned the right way of get people that know what they're doing, let them do the thing. But, whether it was for Hangry or for the podcast or for my website, for anything, where it's like, I need to do the graphic design, I need to do this, I need to do that. And then with my day job, and then at home, how do I juggle all of these parts and realize hey, I got to do this because this is my purpose. I feel like I'm called to help people in this way, whether it is Hangry, feeding those with the issue of food insecurities, or the podcast, being able to just give some insight into my life and hopefully help someone in a situation that they're going through. I put so much stress on myself to have to go through those motions because I'm like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I guess this is what it feels like, right? We all hear that thing of if you enjoy the thing you're working on or whatever, you'll never work a day in your life, which is bullshit, because you're always having to work, and it can feel like work, which is not a bad thing. But this idea of letting your life kind of get overwhelmed and stressed out for no reason, that doesn't make sense. I figured all of this stress was warranted if I wanted to make a difference. And like I said, I came to learn that couldn't be further away from the truth. We can be moving with purpose and in our purpose without kind of dreading the next day of work or the activity or whatever we feel our purpose is driving us to. We are we're scared of death and kind of the ending. And we feel like in order to matter, in order to kind of leave a legacy, if you will, I have to put in all of this extra work. And I put this stress on me of, I need to make sure this is happening, to make sure I'm leaving the next generation with these things that they can kind of hold on to, so I matter, right? Like, did my life matter? Did I do these things to set up things for other people? And I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in the things that we're doing for other people that we don't think about the memories that we're providing for them. I think about with the podcast itself, it's so interesting that I get to have basically conversations with myself. Obviously, a lot of times I have guests on the show, but I have conversations with myself. Really, that's what it can feel like when I'm just looking at the camera here in the office. But really, it's all of you listening that hopefully it hits you a certain way, makes you think about something a different way. And that to me is the important part. And once I kind of limited that or reframed my mind from the stress that all of that brought me, right? To understand that, hey, let's take that stress out, because that has nothing to do with the purpose. I don't need to drive down that way. Now, I'm probably getting a little off topic. So let's circle back around to purpose itself. So I've said that purpose is important, but chasing purpose, that actual verbiage of it isn't. And I think it's more than just like a word choice, but I think it's about how we reframe finding purpose, right? There was a recent sermon at my church that the pastor had brought up this idea of chasing purpose and alignment. We tend to chase after a purpose, but a lot of times we don't have the proper alignment, and then we wonder why we get so far off track, right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions kind of conversation, where we're chasing after this purpose, or we're going after this purpose, but our alignment's just slightly off. We have this idea, alignment isn't a permanent thing, but rather a practice that we choose every day to head in the direction that we want to go. That was the central point of the sermon, where it was talking about this idea of it's not permanent. Just because we kind of set our direction doesn't mean we're always going to flow that way. We have this analogy of, you've probably heard this before, of like a ship, right? That if it just gets slightly off path, just slightly off of the course that it was going to go, in a day, you could be hundreds of miles off course, further off course, right? So it's this idea of continuously having to recalibrate and make sure our alignment is focused towards our purpose. So we can have this purpose, but if we don't have alignment, we can get off course really easily. And I think with alignment, what it helps to is you have to define your values to help guide your purpose. Aligning your day-to-day with your values, heading towards your purpose allows for the longevity of following down that course, right? Are we chasing a purpose to fulfill something other than ourselves? Or is this just an act of chasing a never-ending game and always looking for the next thing that's going to fill us? Again, going back to the chasing happiness aspect, we're grasping for something that's going to be a temporary, fleeting feeling. But that's really never ending if we don't understand or know our why in the situation, right? I personally believe that our purpose is actually within us, that we always have our purpose within us, and using that alignment to understand our values kind of can help bring that to light. And I think when we end up chasing after that purpose, it can seem like we're trying to make up another story, that we're trying to live something else because we feel like what we feel as our purpose may not be all it is. The why behind the chasing is really to show value or worth either to the outside or maybe even within ourselves. So instead of this idea of chasing purpose, again, verbiage, I think we need to pursue it. Instead of chasing after purpose, I think we need to pursue it. going back to the old dictionary, looking at the definition of pursue, it's to engage or to find or employ, measure, to obtain. And I'd say the words are similar. I did some looking online to try to understand English-wise of how we would use these words. But I think our actions help kind of show the difference when we're comparing both chase and pursue. To me, chasing feels like it has a little bit more of desperation. Like it's coming from a need that we're trying to fill a hole or maybe a gap in something. So we're chasing after something to fill that gap. Pursuing to me, though, seems more methodical, intentional, a little more thought through, right? I read this article, again, I'll have the article in the show notes, about relationships and how this idea of chasing versus pursuing in relationships can come into play. And I'm just going to read like a brief excerpt from the article, but it says, pursuit is a well-timed gift without any strings attached. Chasing is buying a gift to get her to like you or to win her, or to make her less angry about a situation. Chasing is calling her because you're afraid of what will happen if you don't. Pursuit means calling her just because you want to talk to her. You know, and even if we think about it in very like simple terms, this idea of chasing your lover can seem a lot more creepy than when you're trying to pursue them in a way. I can understand you can use pursue in a very creepy way as well. But if we think about in this aspect of this desperation versus intentionality, I think we can see the difference in how we are focusing towards it, right? When we're pursuing, we're looking to be able to engage in the situation. And we are more likely to define our values when we're pursuing. We align the values that we've already defined, and that alignment allows us to have actions to pursue towards our purpose, right? They're all interconnected in this way. Again, alignment of this allows the longevity of us moving forward and finding our purpose. If we're aligned in the right places, heading in the right direction, then we'll be on course, right? We'll be following towards our purpose. We'll be pursuing our purpose with that alignment. Now, the waves are going to come. They're going to come crashing. You're going to be on course, and something's going to kind of veer you off. But again, it goes why that's why alignment is a daily practice. It's not something permanent. It's not a set it and forget it. You have to continuously come back to it. Not only to just refocus your direction to make sure, hey, am I on the right path? But to remind yourself of the why. Why am I going down this path? What is my actual, what do I feel is my purpose? Where am I going with this? To make sure that your values, your day-to-day values are lining up with your alignment, heading towards your purpose. The pursuit of our purpose allows us to focus more on the purpose and less on ourselves and this idea of winning the game of life. So obviously purpose is important. I think I've reiterated that a few times, but I think it's how the difference in it is how we go about finding it, if we want to call it that. Perhaps you've been in a season where everything you do seems to not be going where you expected. Or maybe you're questioning your stage of life that you're in, or the decisions that you've made, or what my next step should be. And in that, what does that even mean for my purpose? Where do I go? What do I do? It feels like everything is kind of against me. And, is it an uphill battle? And where am I getting at, right? This idea of wanting to do something great, but not knowing what steps to take, understanding those steps to take, or even being willing to take those additional steps. We determine what we've been doing isn't enough, so then we decide to chase something new. In all of those moments, what I'd like to say is take a moment just to reframe your mind. Reframe this idea of chasing purpose. Be honest with yourself. Define your values, and then use that as an alignment tool to really pursue your purpose. Don't make it your purpose to try and win, because life isn't a game to be won. There's so much more that we can get out of our day to day. And when I say get out of it, it's not necessarily for us. But I truly believe that we're here to make a larger difference for our community as a whole. And when we can really understand our personal values and live those out daily in everything that we do, making sure that we are aligned with our values towards a direction, it's going to guide us towards our purpose. So again, just take that time, reframe your mind, define those values, and use that as the alignment to help be the North Star, if you will, to help guide you to pursuing your purpose. Thanks so much for listening today. You can reach out to me on social media everywhere at flores.run. Subscribe, leave a review for the podcast, share it with a friend. Love to hear about people sharing it. So you Hangry Gear, check that out. But thank you so much for joining me today. Remember to keep running with purpose, one step at a time. See you next week.